Hi everybody and welcome back to another Legends of Runeterra video. Today we get the Variety release. It looks like Variety, the other regions that aren't getting champions this expansion. And I mean, there's quite a few cards here. 15 it says, although probably some of them are token cards that we'll end up seeing here. But like a lot of interesting things I think to go over and dissect. So let's go ahead and just start off here with cards from Shadow Isles. So this is weird. We got kind of a break between these two. Anyway, Shadow Isles. So a one cost. They got this in a weird order. I think this is over here is where it starts. So the Wings and the Wave. This is an epic card, and these should be the token cards. Play me as first wave or last wind. So a one cost coming down. You can put this down the first. So this is interesting. So first wave, when I'm summoned, summon a prey. So a prey is just another 0/1 card that up until this point has only been available through Fading Icon. And it's a 0/1 as well. So effectively we play this card and we get two 0/1s onto the board. So just kind of like sacrifice fodder. Last wind, to play me, kill an ally. So this is why this is kind of interesting. So you'll choose, and then I guess you'll have to, if you choose last wind, you'll have to choose which ally you're going to kill as well at the same time. So this is actually a fairly good way, I think, to balance this card, because there's no way to play this on turn one unless you have like the pesky specter or something, whatever it's called, right? The 0 cost card. Then I guess you could play this, but like you're normally not going to be able to play this 3/3 1 cost card, which is, I think, like I said, fairly balanced. I kind of like the design of this. This versatility is great in Legends of Runeterra. Having more discard or sacrifice fodder is pretty good as well. And this one drop, this is a pretty strong card, a 3/3. I mean, this is a decent card, I think, to play in Undying decks. Like very little investment and really high return on this one drop in an Undying deck. Like playing this on your defensive turn where your Undying isn't going to be able to um to block anyway, we get this pretty decently stat one drop. So really nice. I'm actually a big fan of this. And then again, we can use the first wave if we want to get out more prey to synergize with things potentially like Ancient Crocolith. This is a one drop that curves pretty decently into Ancient Crocolith and gives us 2 units that we can kill. So again, pretty nice here. I'm actually a big fan of this epic, so you are going to have to invest a little bit to get the card, but pretty cool. Decent unit here, I think. All right, so let's go on to the next region here. This is Freljord, Buried in Ice, a 9-cost slow speed spell. So this is an epic spell, so we already know this is a meme card without even having to look at the ability. Obliterate each enemy to summon a frozen tomb in its place. All right, so this is interesting. So the first thing that I'm thinking of here is, does it act like Frozen Tomb, or does it actually obliterate them, and then they just have like these useless frozen tombs where their units were? Or are they going to be resummoned after 2 rounds? They say obliterate each enemy to summon a frozen tomb in its place. So to me, it seems like they're gone for good, and then they've just got all of these worthless landmarks. But I'm not quite positive if that's how the interaction goes down. Basically, if it is, this is a 9-cost kill all units, basically, right? Just thematically, we're including the frozen tomb, and then if not, then we've got 2 turns to kind of act and be able to finish off the game spending 9 mana. So before the units come back. So either way, it is pretty strong. 9 mana is a pretty big investment if you've got a way to. I mean, if you're just trying to stall out the game, maybe this is a good card. This is an interesting card to definitely consider, I think, in a Frozen Thrall deck, or just any control deck with Freljord in general, where we're just trying to get like a couple of rounds before we can finish the game. There is like an interesting level of like mind games with Buried in Ice if we do actually entomb all of these units in Frozen Tomb and they aren't obliterated, because like they'll have to decide whether or not like it's worth keeping their units in Frozen Tomb, right, and then waiting for them to come back in 2 rounds, or if it's better to just replace the units with like blockers and attackers, right? So very interesting, I think. That's like if it's a full board, of course. But I'm not really sure. At least from the wording, it seems like they're obliterated and they've got these frozen tombs that are just kind of worthless. So that's how I'm interpreting it at the moment. But depending on actually how it works, it could be a little different. All right, Succumb to the Cold, a 4-drop. This is or 4 cost burst speed spell. Frostbite an enemy, summon a frozen thrall. All right, so I think this is actually a decent price for this. So frozen thrall normally costs 1 mana, and then Frostbite an enemy, that's flash freeze, that's a 3-cost card, so 4 cost altogether. Pretty balanced card, I think. In Frozen Thrall's decks, I think this actually there is some place for this. Again, we have the ability to summon more Frozen Thralls, and we can Frostbite units while we're at it, so kind of a control aspect with this as well, which is really good because we are just trying to get to late game. Now with the inclusion of Zillion and all of those kind of advanced countdown sort of synergy spells, we didn't really get any new countdown cards besides Time Bomb. That was countdown 1. So unless we end up getting more of these types of cards, countdown cards specifically from Targon, because I kind of doubt we're going to get them from Ionia and Irelia when they're released, but there's a chance we get it from Malphite. Like the only real synergy that we have with countdown like landmarks at all is with Frozen Thralls. Like that's basically it. I mean, there are a couple with Talia, but like even then, she kind of needs those landmarks to stick around so that she, when she's leveled up, gets value out of her leveled up ability, right? So Frozen Thrall's kind of it. And that's kind of, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we got more countdown units from Targon, but I'm also not going to be surprised if we don't. So like if this countdown archetype is supposed to be revolving around these Frozen Thralls, then this could be like that countdown archetype, and this could be really powerful combined with all of the countdown from Shurima. So because there is quite a bit of synergy now with Frozen Thrall, you know, a lot of cards work well with helping get them out earlier. All right. So we already did the Wings and the Wave. Let's go on. So 6-drop. Here we finally get some Bilgewater cards. Monster Harpoon, a fast 6-cost spell. So this is automatically makes me think of a combat trick. Deal 5 to a unit. And Plunder, I cost 3 less. So, I mean, this is a pretty good card if you're reliably able to plunder. Like a deal 5 to a unit for 3 mana, I think is pretty good for a fast speed spell. However, is that worth the like deck building costs of putting it in if you're not able to plunder? Are you willing to spend 6 mana to deal 5 damage to a unit? I don't know. But yeah, if you are able to plunder, deal 5 to a unit, that's pretty good. This is any unit too. This can be used on champions, followers, whatever. So I think this is pretty good interrupter. Like for 3 mana, compare this to Make It Rain. That's hitting 3 units for 1 damage each. This is dealing 5. So I don't know. Like it seems pretty good later on in the game. If maybe you're in like an allegiance deck and you've put out a whole bunch of Yordle grifters and you just have all of these warning shots in hand, then maybe this makes sense. And then later on in the game, it's kind of a control card that you can use to bash down the enemy, maybe. But I don't know. I'm a little skeptical. Just based on the deck building costs and things like that. All right. Let's go on. Bone Skewer. This is obviously a Pike card. This is his little, I guess, is it called Bone Skewer? His little hook that he uses. A 2-cost fast speed spell. An ally strikes an enemy, then moves to the top of your deck. So this is another epic card to an ally strikes an enemy, so they're the only ones striking, right? So they're not being hit back. Then moves to the top of your deck. So what I'm guessing is if they're on the board, right, then they're going to be removed from play, and they're going to be put as the top card in your deck. So this is a very interesting card, and maybe it synergizes a little better with Pike when he comes out, but like this is a combat strike that's not meant to synergize with Demacia, which is interesting, right? Because like every single card in Demacia that uses combat strikes gets some sort of buff or level up. So, for example, like Fiora, if she's trying to level up or win the game, right? You don't want to remove her from play and reset her level up condition or win condition. Same thing with Garen, and then dragons lose their Fury procs. So this is kind of like it's an interesting way to balance the card because again, like I said, it is not a Demacia card. An ally strikes an enemy, then moves to the top. This is a very fascinating card. I need to think about this one a little bit more to kind of fully evaluate it and determine what kind of decks this could even fit with. Like maybe summon effect decks where we get some really good summon effects. I guess we could use something like okay, here's something interesting. So this is just kind of what I'm imagining here is this is probably a way to protect your units, right? So if we are running something like a plunder deck, and like I said before, we've got Yordle grifters or potentially black market merchants, this should remove them from play. So if they're targeted by a spell or something, we can use Bone Skewer, kill a unit, and then go to the top of the deck. We have all of a sudden a plunder play effect on the top of our deck, or in the case of Yordle Grifter, we have an allegiance effect that we can use. And then nab more cards when they come back in and get more warning shots. So there's one use that we could use with Bone Skewer. So actually pretty interesting. So I kind of did not at first when I see the strike, right, this automatically looks like an offensive card, but this is actually a very decent defensive card as well, if it works like I'm imagining, where they are removed from play once they strike. So very interesting combat trick all of a sudden added to Bilgewater. I'm fascinated by this card. I think that this is going to be a really cool card to play around. All right, one drop. So we're on to Noxus now. Thrashing Snapper, a 2/1 epic card again. When an enemy blocks me, give me +3/+0 this round. Very interesting for a one drop actually. Who do we have here? All right, so this is automatically reputation synergy, right? But a defensive card rather than offensive. So again, a one drop. This is actually a very interesting way to balance. I love how they're balancing these cards because this cannot be used offensively. This is great. This means that they're not dealing damage to like the enemy Nexus, like 5 damage. They actually physically have to be blocked. The enemy has a choice whether or not they want to block it, unless of course you've got Challenger or something, right? But then we get these reputation procs as well when they are blocked. So he goes up to a 5/1, which is a massive stat line for a one drop. And it's only for the round, so I mean they can stop it if they've like used Glimpse Beyond, for example, on their unit. Then the next round it goes back to a 2/1. It doesn't say. I don't know if this is going to be every time it attacks. I would kind of guess not, just because of something like Honored Lord. Let's look at that real quick. The first time. Okay. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Gotta go back now. I said the first time. So Honored Lord, at least with that sort of language and writing that they have, that's like the first time. I think they changed that. I don't think it used to say that, did it? Or no, it did. It did say the first time. So when an enemy blocks me, give me +3/+0. So this seems like a pretty decent buff target, actually, for a one drop. An epic card. Yeah, I think this is every time an enemy blocks. So I mean, you do have to use it offensively, but very interesting card. This again is a very intriguing card, and this works really well with reputation, both with Sivir and LeBlanc. This is a card that could make reputation possible with a lot of other regions as well, combined with Noxus. Very interesting. All right, let's go on here to Incisive Tactician. I think Thrashing Snapper is pretty good. An 8 cost reputation, I cost 6, so we get a 2 cost reduction with this incisive tactician. When I'm summoned rallies, so another rally effect outside of Demacia. So I mean, really the only other region that has rallies is Noxus. We do have Citrus Courier, but for the most part, Noxus is really the only other region with rally. A 4/5, 8 cost, so obviously the stat line is absolutely awful for an 8 cost unit. So I mean, you do really want to get this to be a 6 cost and I mean by turn 6, I think you should have gotten your reputation procs. I mean, good reputation decks usually get them by turn 6, right? And so this, in if it is included in an actual reputation deck, should be a 4/5, right? It should be a 6 cost 4/5. And I think that's fair. Does it fit? I mean, this potentially fits really well with Sivir LeBlanc. Being able to rally at turn 6 is really nice with units with quick attack. So, I mean, I don't know, kind of depends. The curve is really nice. You have Ruin Runner coming out on turn 5, and then this Incisive Tactician potentially coming out on turn 6. So, this is an interesting card. We'll see if it actually fits. What are some other 6 cost cards that would potentially take this spot? Because I think normally we do just end on turn 5 with Ruin Runner, and Reputation decks, right? So maybe this does fit in. I don't know. I have to play around with this one too. I mean, Rally sometimes it looks, it's very like alluring and maybe not as good as you potentially think that it is, right? But maybe this does fit in. All right, let's go on to this. So actually, a new keyword here: 1 cost tech, a tech card. I don't think we have any other tech cards. Do turrets count as tech, or are they? Let's look up real quick. Let me right click on them. Yep. They are tech. Interesting. Alright, let's go back now. So yeah, turrets are tech cards. So I think those might be the only ones. So that's why like I'm not very familiar with it. Adaptatron 3000, a 1-drop. When you summon a tech, we share keywords. This is an epic card. Doesn't count as a turret itself, so it's not going to help Heimerdinger level ups. Alright, so the issue that I see with this card is, okay, it gets keywords, but it's only got one attack. So unless we include this in buff decks, like, what's the point of having a 1 damage unit with quick attack, elusive, fearsome? Tough, I guess, would be good. A 2-drop is basically like the 2-drop turret is really the only thing that's because it does has a decent health stat, so it would be able to block into a lot. But I don't know. I'm not sold on this card unless I'm not seeing something here. It's not like it's getting extra stats, just keywords. All right, Circuit Breaker. So again, I think we're backwards here because these are token cards. All right, let's go to the Kyrian Sunburger. Kyrian, yeah, Sunburger. Okay. I think it's pronounced Kyrian and maybe Kyrian, who knows. Sumpworker. This is an elusive card, a 2-drop coming off. Has a 1/2 stat line. This is only a common card. When you summon another Kyrian Sumpworker, obliterate me and transform allied Kyrian Sumpworkers everywhere into Sumpworks posses. Alright, and then the Sumpwork posses, I love this artwork. This reminds me of like E.T. or something. I don't know why. Sumpworks posse, a 4-drop, or sorry, still a 2-drop. Elusive attack, deal 1 to enemies and the enemy nexus. So a pretty strong ability here. So not only is it elusive, dealing 4 damage, you're also dealing 1 to all enemies and the enemy nexus. Now, a lot of you may be thinking that this is Swain synergy. I don't really think this is Swain synergy. This seems more like elusive synergy to me. So okay, so what what has to happen in order to pull this off? Okay, we have to, by some point in the game, we have to pull two of these Kyrian sump workers, and then we get one Sumpworks posse out on the board, right? When you summon another Kyrian sump worker, obliterate me, and transform allied Kyrian sump workers everywhere. So I think if I'm understanding the language correctly, again, it's kind of difficult sometimes. They have weird writing a lot of times on these cards. One of them is destroyed, and then the other one becomes a Sumpworks posse, and then say you've got three in your deck, that one becomes a Sumpworks posse as well, and so you got the potential to draw one more Sumpworks posse and put it out for a total of two under normal circumstances. Now, of course, we could create probably a meme deck. Maybe it's not meme. Who knows? With counterfeit copies and get more of these Kyrian sump workers in the deck, be able to pull them more reliably, and then get more of these Sumpworks posses down, right? So, very interesting card. This seems like a really fun card to play with, to be honest. We're dealing a lot of damage to enemies, get elusive damage, but I think like the build around with this card is that your deck is going to have to be very focused on being able to pull these Kyrian sump workers and then playing with it. I don't know that it fits necessarily into other unit decks like Swain, even though that does seem like a pretty fun choice. I mean, I'll probably end up doing it anyway, just because it sounds fun. And I mean, these attacks are dealing, damage to the Nexus and damage to enemies as well. So pretty funny. I think this is a really funny artwork and a pretty funny card itself. I really like it. All right. Ooh, another Cytheria card. So more to the Cytheria lore and storyline here. Cytheria, Lady of Clouds. Cytheria the Bold was the last one to 6-drop. Cytheria, Lady of Clouds. So are they going to make Cytheria into a league champion? I could actually see them doing that. She's actually got a pretty cool little story now available through her to the kind of artwork of these cards in Legends of Runeterra. So really cool here. A 10-drop though, elite card, challenger. When I'm summoned, double other allies' power and health, and then grant them challenger. Wow, that's a really interesting card. Like, how good is this? How good is this? I mean, it's a 10-drop. So this is a super late game card. We can get this out earlier, though, with like Spectral Matron on turn 8. It's a summon effect. This is a summon effect. This is not a play effect. This is a summon effect, so we can cheat this out earlier. There's a couple of ways to cheat this out, right? Yeah, we could use Spectral Matron and then all of a sudden double all of our units' power. That's really interesting. With Shadow Isles. Now, this is going to be a very niche card, I think. I don't think this is going to actually hit like mid-range Demacia decklist, because I mean, this is just a super late game card. I mean, you are doubling all of your units' power though, so if you somehow manage to not win the game at that point or die, turn 10, like this is going to be a huge card that they and I mean, a game-winning card they're not going to be able to deal with. So 10, like, do we have any other reliable 10 drop cards anywhere in the game? Units. I mean, there's spells that are used like Fill the Rush, but units themselves, I don't think there is. So is Cytheria, Lady of Clouds, going to change that? The odds are definitely against her, but the ability is super interesting. And like I said, a summon effect can be cheated out a little bit earlier, so maybe she does hit some decks. Pretty cool card, pretty cool art here. Cytheria, I mean, it's an A plus for me just because Cytheria gets another card, an expansion to her story, so that's pretty cool. All right, so it looks like the last card here, we have another Demacia card, Ardent Tracker, a scout, 6-cost elite. When you summon an elite, reduce my cost by 1. All right, so that means the earliest that we can play this card is going to be turn 4. Is that correct? No, not necessarily. I mean, we could have a whole bunch of 1-drop elites, right? The other Cytherias. Cytheria of Cloud Field. Lady of the Clouds. I wonder what she's riding here. She must be riding like a Swift Wing Lancer or something. Anyway, so not necessarily true, but like if we do play this in a traditional mid-range deck and play all of our units on curve, then the earliest we can play this is going to be turn 4. 4-drop, and we have to have played elites too, right? A 4-drop for 3/5. I mean, the investment price of this is pretty nice for a scout, I think. And then later on in the game, if this costs, 1 or something, like that's a pretty good investment for a 1-drop. A scout that's a 3/5 stat line is pretty darn good. So I do think that this card hits elite decks. Even though it says 6, this is obviously not a 6-mana card. You're not going to be playing this on turn 6. You're going to be including it in elite decks. I think this is a very solid card and is going to have a lot of consideration for elite decks. Now, I do want to say, where's the dog? Every other scout has their, I don't even know what to call it, their little animal helper friend, their scout helper, as a card, except the dog. Am I missing something? Is their dog actually there and I don't know? Valor has a card. Grumpy Rock Bear has a card, or Grumpy, what is it called? Grumpy something bear. And the Great Horn Companion. Is there any other scout units? Scouts, part of like the elite scout group from Demacia, because there's other scout units obviously, but where's the dog? Riot, give us the dog. All right, yeah, I'm actually, these cards, the variety of reveals are always really interesting because they do tend to release some pretty cool cards here. And yeah, super excited. If I am going to list the cards that I'm most excited about in this reveal here, I would probably have to say Bone Skewer, Thrashing Snapper, and the Kyrian Sumpworker. Those seem like really cool build-arounds in certain decks and deck archetypes. So pretty excited here to mess around with these cards and try them out. The cards that I'm not so sure about here, probably Monster Harpoon, Adaptatron 3000, and well, all the other ones are pretty good. I think we can, these are, I'm definitely very skeptical about these, but the other ones at least have some sort of interest to me and potential to fit into decks. So anyway, that's about it. I think we will end this video. Has gone on pretty long here. Tell me which cards you're excited about. Tell me what kind of decks you want to build and where you see these cards landing. If you guys enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks.